Recovered Addict Podcast. We're like just cruising right along with these episodes.
Cruising.
Yeah, I love it. So, Dwayne, I want you to, if you don't mind, we're going to start off. I want to ask you something kind of personal. What does like a spiritual journey or spirituality mean to you as an addict? Like personally?
Yeah, heavy duty question. I think that it depends on my perspective in regards to the answer of that question. But what does a spiritual journey look like? What does spirituality look like?
Like personally in your life?
As an addict. In my addiction, I treated a substance like it was God. That was my God. That was I basically worshipped the bottle, and it was my number one priority. I was willing to make whatever necessary selfish decisions in order to honor that worship and make the bottle most important. More important than my family, more important than my work, more important than any relationship, more important than my health, more important than my connection to anything outer worldly or vertical dimension. So,
do you think that I don't mean to interrupt you, but do you think that spirituality in and of itself saved you?
Absolutely. I think that it was just a skewed perspective. I had the wrong view of what I should be seeking. And I was seeking this substance that made me feel a part of, made me feel connected to, and then it stopped working. And I kept trying the same experiment in my addiction, expecting a different result, and I was experiencing this insanity of a disease, insanity of an addiction. And so the progression of that search, I'm very grateful that I experienced what I experienced in order for me to get really spiritually sick. So in my addiction, I think that there's a spiritual illness, a spiritual malady. I'm lacking something spiritually because I was seeking that solution from a substance.
Yes.
I was not seeking that solution from vertical dimension, shoes of inner being. That meant nothing to me. You might as well be speaking Russian to me. And so there's a little window of grace that we discussed in regards to an opportunity to do something different, an opportunity to change, an opportunity to have a shift in lifestyle, a redirection in purpose. And I received that window of grace. I received, a lot of teachings like to call it the gift of desperation. I got desperate enough where I was willing to try something different. And what was different was a spiritual lifestyle laid out in front of me. And that's a fascinating adventure. It's pretty paradoxical to the way I think I can handle a problem. My brain usually says, well, work harder, attack it. You can master this. You can conquer this. You have the willpower. You have the strength. And we talked, in a couple episodes ago about admitting defeat and surrendering to this problem, to this addiction, open the door for a solution to enter my life.
Yeah, it's so wild. You said that the bottle was your God.
I made every decision based on that.
Yeah, and I think of the Mayan gods, and I watched a whole History Channel thing about it. And they started off, like a virgin. We're going to get a young girl, and we're going to sacrifice it to appease the god.
Correct.
Or the gods that they had. And then that wasn't good enough. And they got to the point to like one day they said, they were talking on this, it was like thousands of people in one day.
Yeah.
Just to try to appease the god.
Because it wasn't enough.
Yeah, it wasn't enough. So we started with one, and now we've gone to 1,000. And that cruel god still cannot be appeased.
Correct.
So like the bottle, making it a god in your mind, and then it being so cruel to you, it's not, because that has nothing to do with the bottle.
No.
The bottle just has liquid in it.
Yeah.
And it's a bottle. And you could drink it. You could drink all different kinds of things. You just had an espresso.
Yeah.
You could drink those. And if you drink too many of them, you're going to get sick because of the caffeine. You know what I mean? But what makes you stop not wanting to have 10 espressos compared to I need a fifth?
Very interesting. That's a very good question. This is the realm. Now we're in the realm of addiction.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to have 17 Perriers.
Right.
Perrier is just the best drink ever. I got to have more. I don't have that about Perrier.
Right.
But I do have that in regards to alcohol. I do have that in regards to my worrisome thoughts. I do have that in regards to sugar.
Mm-hmm.
So why this addictive component? Why this? Well, if one is good, 1,000 is better. I believe that answer is because I'm searching for a spiritual solution in a physical form.
Yes,
and there's this physical sugar, there's this physical alcohol, there's this physical woman, there's this physical money, whatever the physical form may be.
Right.
I'm looking at these physical things, hoping they're going to fix me on the inside, and all of them fail.
Yeah,
it fails every time.
And when you have a false god, and this talks about in the Bible and stuff
absolutely,
like this,
yeah.
and when you have
calf.
a false god, a golden calf, that false god is based off of an image that collectively a group of people created or you've created in your head.
Mm-hmm.
And then that becomes your spirituality. And when that becomes your spirituality, all it is a narcissistic loop that's kicking. And then, like you can look at the Inquisition, and we've got a crown here and kind of some fun stuff around on the table and stuff. But we look at it was done in the name of God.
Yeah.
And so doing things in the name of the bottle, in the name of the calf, in the name of, the golden calf, in the name of whatever, Lucifer or whatever you want to call it, people, Satan, Satan made me do it. I'm just an alcoholic. I'm victim to the bottle, the bottle, alcohol's making me be this way. And you said something that I think that's really important, and this is what we're going to talk about today, is the depths of your addiction. The depths of your addiction is seeking something spiritual.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that spiritual malady, that lack, knows no end. Like they always say, when are you going to hit bottom? When are you going to hit bottom? I found bottoms that fell through bottoms that fell through bottoms. You just keep going further and further into your addiction until I can come to terms with I'm suffering spiritually.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not suffering from this next physical thing will make me okay.
Right.
Oh, you know what? Now we have a legalized marijuana for that. Just smoke some weed, you'll be okay. It's like we just replace one thing with the next.
Yeah, a lot of people do that, and I think you need to be careful of that. And they're like, "Well, this ain't as bad as this," or
correct. Yeah.
At least I'm not on the bottle. But you've done. I know somebody that replaced sodas with that addiction, from alcohol to, drinking 10, 12 sodas a day. Now you just have a sugar addiction.
Totally.
And a lot of people have, sugar addictions and stuff like that. So material says this: from the depths of addiction to the peaks of recovery, the spiritual journey towards healing is often as complex as it is transformative. The journey requires a profound shift. So I want people to understand the shift. So imagine, we've talked about this. You're walking this direction. You're going to go this way. From the ego-driven, self-centered behaviors that fuel the addiction.
Yes.
That's the gasoline, is the ego-driven, self-centered behaviors that fuel the addiction, to the humbling practice of spiritual growth and self-discovery.
Wow. What a contrast.
Yes.
Spiritually, humble spiritual practice compared to selfish and destructive. That's the shift in perspective. That's the shift in attitude. That's the shift in how am I approaching life?
Right.
Am I waking up in the morning thinking me first? How does the alcoholic's alarm clock go off in the morning? me.
Yeah, exactly.
Our selfishness is really the root of the disease in any addiction. I need to get my way, and I need to get it now. Instead of turning to spiritual solution, and the spiritual lifestyle teaches me I'm okay regardless. I'm okay regardless of my external circumstances. I'm okay regardless of whatever the dollar amount is in the bank, whatever the amount of relationship I have in my life, whatever it may be. These external things are great and to be honored, but it's not what makes me okay.
Right.
My connection and relationship to source, to vertical dimension, to the God consciousness inside of me is what we are seeking. However, The literature says it's a complex, evolving journey.
Right.
When I'm in the depths of my addiction, I don't know that's what I'm seeking. I don't know that I'm looking for a spiritual solution. My skin's crawling.
Yes.
My skin is crawling. People upset me. The world and its figures dominate me. I'm dominated by how the world is treating me.
Yeah, I put this quote because I thought it was so cool. We've all heard of Terrence McKenna. He's the old dude that was doing, psychedelics and stuff like that in the 70s. But he did write some really beautiful stuff. And he was a philosopher, spiritual person, kind of the plant medicines, LSD, all that stuff. I think I'm kind of weary of that.
Me too.
I've never tried it. I just don't want to go in that direction. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. Some people there's many paths on the spiritual journey. Some people that's their path. But listen to this quote. This is so powerful. Nature loves courage. You make the commitment, and nature will respond to that commitment by removing impossible obstacles. So that in and of itself is a great quote. It gets better. Dream the impossible dream, and the world will not grind you under. It will lift you up. So this is an addict's mind can't handle this. And he says this is the trick. This is what all these teachers and philosophers who really counted, who really touched the alchemical gold, this is what they understood. This is the shamanic dance in the waterfall. And then this next part of the quote, this is the part to pay attention. This fucked me up big time. This is how magic is done. By hurling yourself into the abyss and discovering it's a feather bed.
Oh, fantastic.
Isn't that great?
Fantastic. Throw yourself into the abyss.
And then you think, it's like, oh my God, this is the worst thing ever. And then you find out you just fell into a feather bed.
All in my mind. Yeah. And that's what I was running from my entire addiction. I was running from having to choose something different. I don't know that path. I don't know the abyss. I don't know that direction. It's too scary. I don't know any other way to live. Of course, I'm not going to be honest. I'm used to being dishonest.
Don't you think that, especially for me as and people identify into all different kind of things. I don't want to get into that, but I identify as a male. Mm-hmm. So for me, identifying as a male, there's something about not having courage that screws me up. Mm-hmm. Like what you're talking about right there. It's like, I don't want to have the courage to go into the abyss that way when I know there's healing there. I would prefer to be a loser and hang out with something that I know that's safe and comfort.
Yeah, that's something that I know. It's a conditioned behavior. I don't know any other way to live. Of course, I'm going to continue this destructive cycle. And, something profound, something magic. We're touching magic now. It's difficult to grasp. It's also difficult to articulate. How do you articulate magic? It's like, I don't really know. But there's a very transformative process that takes place when I start making decisions based on principle rather than decisions based on self. My entire
That's
addiction,
huge, yes.
My entire addiction was geared towards getting mine.
Yes.
What Dwayne wants, when he wants it, I'll run you over to get what I want. Get out of my way. So
how do you, that's the switch.
That's the switch. That's the shift in perspective. There's a shift in perspective, but also a shift in action. I could pay lip service to anything all day long. I'll get better. I'll stop.
You could go to a meeting.
I'm sorry.
Have all the answers.
I'm sorry. Yes. And sound really pretty and sound great. I know the right things to say so I can still get what I want. I'm still selfish. So it's not about paying lip service to anything. It's about my feet. Are my feet behaving in a different way? Usually in a destructive, addictive lifestyle, we get in a lot of pain. Life is painful. It's difficult turning my back on God. And we like to say, when you turn your back on God, on the God consciousness inside of you, when you turn around and then you turn back around and kick that God in the teeth, he might take it personal. That your inner being might take it personal. My life starts looking really bad and uncomfortable because of my selfish decisions. But I don't know in my addiction that is because I'm not standing in the shoes of inner being. I'm getting further and further away from my true self. the getting further and further away is what feels so bad. That's why my stomach's doing figure eights. That's why I'm having a heart palpitation. That's why I need medication for anxiety, because I'm too far away from the true Dwayne. I'm not in alignment with my spirit. I'm not in alignment with my soul. I'm not in alignment with inner being. I don't know how to feel good. So spiritual practice is accessing tools, accessing action steps, taking action throughout the day to help me get in relationship with that inner being. How do I build a relationship with my inner being? Do I have a prayer practice? Do I have a meditation practice? Do I have a exercise, invite God in moment during the day? Do I have a nutrition practice where we were talking about this recently. You helped me tremendously. Bringing God into my food. Am I bringing spirit and nourishment into every bite? How present am I throughout the day? All of this evolves, and that's part of that fascinating journey that continues to get bigger. But I am very interested, and I think a very long time ago, we've said this before, we'll say it again. I made a handshake commitment with the universe that I'm willing to feel good all the time. And that all the time is a radical idea. So that all the time takes work. That takes constant work. That takes constant improvement. The desire to change. The desire to head down a different path.
Yeah, you said it's decisions based off of principles.
Yes.
In the earlier part of your conversation, you said decisions based off of principles, not based off of selfishness. A lot of the decisions that's based off of selfishness are impulses.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's a strong emotional feeling that you get. It's like, oh my God, I got to have this person. Or, oh my God, I got to have this cookie.
Yeah.
Or, oh my God, I need the bottle. Or I got to go to the casino. I just got $300 cash. And then it's just reacting really quickly on the impulse. That boom, boom, boom,
Yep.
It's just that quick. And then you're heading in that direction, the wrong direction. And what I like what you said is having a spiritual practice that says I can feel good all the time. Not the 4 hours before I got blackout drunk. Mm-hmm. I felt great for 4 hours.
Yeah.
And not the chaos that I create after that, so that when I wake up, I'm sore, I'm black eyes, I got all these issues, or I spent literally my whole paycheck in one night, at the casino or whatever it may be, whatever vice you have or addiction, drugs, whatever. It doesn't matter. It's making the decision to feel good all the time. How do you know, if the only way you feel great is with meth, you know what I mean? And you feel amazing for a day or two or whatever. How do you get to that point, not to let the impulse hit you, but then allow yourself to feel good 24/7? Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Instead of just having my God, the drug, make me feel good for a few hours.
Yeah, yeah. That's a tough question to answer. And unfortunately, most people don't ever get to answer it. They just die. They go so far down the rabbit hole with the addiction that it kills them. They don't take action and try and head in a different direction. So I have to be uncomfortable enough to try and change my behavior. If I think the behavior is still working, I'll continue it. So the whatever the addiction is, it has to stop working. I have to stop feeling good.
Yes.
From the substance, from the whatever it is. Yeah, okay, I had a high for 4 hours, but the next 2 days I felt like I was going to die. You know what I mean? Maybe death would have been even better than that feeling. So I have to really get to a low place, a bottom, to be willing to change. And we say, when you're going to hit bottom, the answer is when you put your shovel down and stop digging. It's like when you stop attempting that old trial to connect to source, to connect to feeling good your way, and try something else. And then try something else, and then try something else. It's a fascinating adventure, continues to evolve. And it's unrealistic to say I'm going to feel good 24/7. We begin, if I have a spiritual present moment practice, to catch glimpses of that. I get that. So without the substance, I start touching shoes of inner being because now I'm practicing spiritual principles. I'm practicing making decisions based on principle. Integrity is a principle. Honesty is a principle. Humility is a principle. These are good ways of living. These are nice, powerful, transformative ways to navigate the world. I behave in these principles, and then I catch a little bit of glimpse of how good it feels to be that type of person. When I start helping other people, for some reason, God seems to like it. It's like, wow, I got lit up inside. Wow, I feel better about the man I am. They say you want self-esteem, what are you supposed to do? Esteemable acts. Start behaving in a way that you can be proud of the man or woman that you are.
Yeah, and I think that's so good. And the literature says this, and it goes right in with what you're saying. It says, at the core of this spiritual transformation lies an essential truth. So at the core, that's a key word. Words are really important. We skim past stuff nowadays with our Instagram addiction.
Yeah. Most times on the Instagram, I don't even read whatever it's saying.
Or like I have Apple News, and I'll go through there, and I'm just reading the little headlines. And we've caused the news. I mean, part of the news thing is screwed up or whatever. I get all that on both sides. But they've done that because of our reaction. They know that headline has to be jolting.
Yeah.
Even though I was reading something today, and the headline didn't even line up with the article. They were just trying to get me to click on it, which I did.
Yeah.
And I looked at the article, but it was... So whenever we're at the core of this spiritual transformation, then there is lying an essential truth. So it's like you've discovered this, you're in the jungle, you're Indiana Jones, go up all these obstacles, and then you discovered the essential truth after you've gone to down at the core, there's something lying there. Ooh, there's a tomb full of jewels. What is that essential truth that's lying there? I want people to visually see it that way.
Yes, yes.
And it says, to heal from addiction, one must embrace a higher power.
Powerful.
So when you think of addiction, recovery, and the higher power, and we were talking about this in the gym earlier, what do you think of when you hear the word higher power with addiction and recovery?
I think solution. I think that makes me think of a solution. I'm not going to have a solution for my addiction unless I have a higher power in my life, a spiritual practice in my life. And you know what? It's also important to say a principle practice in my life. We talked about principles just a second ago, integrity, honesty. Even if I'm atheistic, I can still get sober. I don't have to have some concept of a higher power, but I can have a very powerful concept and belief in principles. And for me, I'm very lucky with the perspective that I've been able to hold and maintain and evolve. There wasn't a prejudice against believing in something bigger than myself. So the idea of a higher power really worked for me. I love the language that is like spirit of the universe, God consciousness, shoes of inner being. We like to use many terms because any one term limits it. And it's just too big for me to even try and comprehend, so maybe I shouldn't. But that's how big and powerful of an energy source that I can tap into. I can tap into the most powerful thing in the universe, something that can solve my problem. What problem? Any problem.
I think higher power is just something that transcends your ego and your selfish desires.
Very good. Yes.
So it's something that I can grab onto. It's that, okay, I just fell off the cruise ship. Luckily they saw me, and now they're throwing that life preserver out there. It's something in my drowning that I can grab onto.
It's perfect.
And it's tangible, and it's going to help me. It's going to save me.
That's the perfect analogy.
Yeah.
That's the saving life preserve.
Yeah. So whenever I think of higher self, and it says this, the path to recovery requires us to accept that addiction is deeply rooted in ego and self-centeredness. We talked about that. When we're caught in the throes of addiction, we're driven by fear, anger, and worry, and a need to control our environment. Let's stop right there.
Yeah.
So when we're caught in the throes of our addiction, and the word caught is I almost think of it. You like to fish. I like to fish. When you pull a fish out of the water, what does it do? When it's caught,
we give it a Frank yank in my family, and you yank it out of the water, and then it's flopping all over the place, man.
Yeah, and so that's in the throes of your addiction.
Yeah,
you're a fish out of water.
Fish out of water. What's the opposite of principles? Fear.
Yes.
Anger. Worry. Control.
And yes.
Yeah. How am I navigating the world? Am I navigating the world with fear, anger, worry, and control? Most days, yes. Or do I have a spiritual practice? Do I have an integrity practice? Do I have an honesty practice? Do I have a principle-based practice? How am I showing up to problems? I had a problem, it's a perceived issue today, and I had an opportunity to hide from it and practice fear and practice worry and practice control. Let's control the situation. Let's hide this under the rug. Or I had an opportunity to be honest, to own my side of the street in the situation, and then move forward.
Yeah, and it's also, if we think of drive, it drives us. We're driven by fear, anger, worry. It's how we perceive the environment around us. Because you could perceive that you're driving in Beverly Hills at 2 o'clock in the morning, or you could perceive that you're driving in Detroit in the worst part of town.
Yeah.
Chicago, Philadelphia, these areas. I'm not picking on these cities. What I'm saying is, what environment are you seeing as you're driving? If you're driving in Beverly Hills, the average cop there makes, over $100,000. Detectives can make $250,000. The odds of you walking around at the Chanel store or the Louis Vuitton store and getting mugged are probably pretty rare. I bet you could count on your hand the crime that they have in Beverly Hills. A lot of it's probably just rich people committing suicide or something. People depressed, overdosing, probably a lot of addiction there. But as far as like crime that goes, compared to you go and you read these articles in certain cities. We're in one.
It's normal.
In Albuquerque, there's like a murder every day. So what is the environment that I'm in, and where am I driving to and where am I driving from? And then while I'm driving, what am I feeling? Am I feeling anger, worry, a need to? Because if you're in a chaotic environment, you can try to control it. If you're doing meth and in a meth house and you're listening to this, because you saw us on Instagram or whatever, we're getting a ton of views on Instagram now. We encourage you guys to follow us. I think I want to make sure I say it right. Let's do this. Let's plug it. Good Recovered point. Addict Podcast. So if you go to Instagram, Recovered Addict Podcast, DM us, let us know. We'd love to be able to answer some of your questions. But the environment that you're in, it's very, very hard to have a spiritual practice when I'm a meth addict in a meth house.
Yes, absolutely. We say if you hang out in a barber shop long enough, you're probably going to get a haircut.
That's a great analogy.
It's like, why? So there's little hope for my recovery if I'm still hanging out in the shooting gallery.
Yes.
So I'm surrounded by death. I'm surrounded by hurt. I'm surrounded by people behaving in their selfishness. I'm just going to fit right in. You know what I mean? So there's little hope. It can still be done. It can still be done. However, action steps need to take place to improve my environment simultaneously. Improve my perspective. So you talked about perspective and how I'm perceiving the drive. Am I driving in Beverly Hills or am I driving in an unsafe neighborhood in wherever? A lot of my selfishness, a lot of my fear, we can say majority of my fear, my worry, anger, and control, it has everything to do with my perception.
100%.
Now, am I coming from a place of selfishness in my perception? Do I need to get what I want? I need to get it my way. Am I coming from a place of selfishness in my fear? I'm afraid of losing what I have. I'm afraid of not getting what I want. Am I coming from a place of selfishness in my worry? I'm going to worry about this and think about this all day long for a couple hours because then I get to think about me. It affects me. Let's worry about this. Let's worry about this.
Yeah, that's so good.
Worry pretends to be necessary.
That's my addiction.
Yes, me too. Me too. I had dealt with that big time today. You helped me a lot get out of that. And control and then control. Right. Am I coming from a place of selfishness? Am I control? If you clean the house appropriately, then I'll love you the way I think you deserve. Because I need a clean environment. I like to control my environment. So very controlling. We call them placing control mechanisms in place. I have control mechanisms in place in all my relationships. And if you behave the way I think I need you to behave, then I love you. But if you don't, you'll get the wrath.
Yeah.
And then, the flip side of that. Now, what's the flip side of that selfish coin? The flip side of that selfish coin is this spiritual solution, this spiritual path that I'm taking. What's a principle opposite of control? Acceptance?
Yes.
Can I accept someone the way they are, their flaws? Can I accept a situation the way it is? There's death and murder. Should I say, no, it shouldn't be happening, it shouldn't be happening? Well, it is happening. Mm-hmm. Just because something's true doesn't mean it fits my criteria for getting all my attention.
Yes, that's good. 100%.
Just because something is true.
Yes.
Does not mean it fits my criteria for getting all my attention. Especially if I made a handshake commitment with the universe that I want to feel good all the time. So where am I sending my attention? Attention is clarity. Attention is presence. If I can give something attention, I'm simultaneously giving it my presence. If I'm present with something, I'm probably not in fear. I'm probably not in worry. I'm not worried about my bills and this conversation that needs to happen 2 weeks from now if I'm present with something.
Well, we talked about that with Abraham Hicks. Today, it's like anytime there's fear, worry, any of these so-called negative polarities or these negative feelings, that means that you're not connected to your higher self. Higher being or God or whatever you want to call it, Holy Spirit.
Yes.
That means you're not connected. That should be a quick indication.
Yeah.
Like I pray every day that I will get to the point where I can recognize that instantly. Be like, oh, you're in fear, Jason. You're not connected to higher source. Why are you worried about this? It's that. And the literature says this, it's really good. It's a form of suffering that disconnects us from our true self and the world around us.
Yes.
Isn't that so cool that we can, I'm saying in a sarcastic way, isn't it so cool that we can just obsess and disconnect and make it all about me and that there's no oneness, that I'm not one with the person sitting next to me. I'm not one with my boss. I'm not one with you. I'm separate from you. And I'm going to sit here in perceived suffering because I'm disconnected from higher source, and I'm going to enjoy it and obsess over it and wonder why I'm struggling.
Yeah. Exactly. And then that separateness, that disconnect, that's the same. That's still my selfishness. That's still me wanting to be separate from the world.
Yeah, and I had a couple examples today, and I want to talk about some people that I know and people that listen to this podcast and stuff like that. And I thought this was really, really good example. And I want you to talk to this about this person because I think you've dealt with a lot of addicts over 13 years, not only yourself, but have helped a lot of addicts. So here's somebody that's recovering. We'll just use her name, Emma. She was still is a fashion blogger online and all that stuff. And she constantly sought validation from online followers. Like comments were everything to her. And then when she would have a really bad comment, it would just, she'd get 100 good comments, pretty successful online. Yeah. Get a 100, then that one was some idiot, some guy that's, still living with his parents, stuck in a basement.
Totally.
Hates women, that whole perspective. And he would just make some stupid comment to her. And then that would just wreck her day. And then she always had to portray that perfect image online, that she was having a perfect life. So she would use social media and that presence, that false presence, to manipulate and maintain, and this is get her self-importance.
Yes.
So it's feeding her narcissism. And over time, she developed an addiction to prescription drugs. And nowadays they'll hand out stuff like candy. They're getting a little bit better with it. But at first it was, I have anxiety that's growing. And you talked about that. I need a pill to help me with this. And some people need medication, so we're not talking against any of that.
If you need medication, you should take.
But the pressure to maintain her online image. And so you get Emma's narcissistic tendencies, you combine it with this prescription drug addiction, and then you have this huge disconnect from her authentic self because the false self that she's living. That's why a lot of people's relationships break up, because you presented a false self to the other person. Then when they find out the real you, they're like, who the fuck is this?
Yeah.
And then it led her to increased feelings of loneliness and isolation, which is what it's going to do.
Powerful.
When you're
powerful.
You've seen situations like this. When you think of Emma, what do you think of when it comes to this addiction? And it's prescription drugs, doesn't matter what it is. But loneliness, isolation, needing approval from others.
Yes, so powerful how this unconscious desire, especially, and it's important. This is an excellent example, especially with just today's world. And is my self-worth, my self-worth based on how many likes I'm getting? Is my connection to feeling good based on how many views and how frequently are people wanting to be my friend and followers and X, Y, and Z, social media? Is my self-worth wrapped up in social media? We've talked a lot about vertical dimension, horizontal dimension. And social media, Abraham Hicks likes to call it nose book. Nose book instead of Facebook, because everyone wants to know what everyone's doing.
Yeah.
So what's going on in nose book? And, those are wonderful things and great tools to be able to keep in touch. And I have all these social media platforms. I enjoy them. But these things are also based in form. That's part of the form world, my horizontal existence. If my self-worth is wrapped up in anything in the horizontal world is very transient. It comes and goes. Money comes and goes. Likes come and go. Friends come and go. Relationships come and go. So when those things go, what happens to me? Am I worthless now? Should I take medication now to mask this feeling because I don't know how to handle my feelings of worthlessness? Should I kill myself? Maybe I'll kill myself. I'm so lonely. I'm so afraid. And I feel so worthless. This existence I don't even want to be here anymore. I can't stand it. Very normal in the depths of our addiction for people to take their own life. And unfortunately, they weren't presented a spiritual solution because my identity is wrapped up in the world of form.
Yeah, so we had a situation, I want to mention it, but we had a situation that happened a couple years ago that led to a lot of loneliness and isolation. And suicide rates went up through the roof. I think this is really important. Whenever you walk that walk of total ego, total just like pure selfishness, it's going to lead you to that narcissistic loop in your head. And we're going to talk about this next episode, but it's going to lead you to the narcissistic loop in your head. And that will lead to these neurotic, mental health issues, whether it's like for me, depression. Like I just recently, within the last 5 years, have a really good grasp of my depression. Until that, it controlled me. I would just wake up and be like, I freaking hate the world.
Yeah.
I don't want to go to work. And I would just be like, sure will to go. You know what I mean? Like, it's like the gym. Some people hate going to the gym. I mean, you don't have that feeling, but some people, it's like, it takes a lot for them to get to the gym.
Yeah.
It's just like, there's just this, and you need to ask yourself, why do I hate going to the gym so much? There's a lot of self-aware questions, but when you're caught up in the addiction or when you're caught up mentally, everything's just foggy. And I was listening to Jocko Willink, which was a Navy SEAL, and you've heard of him. And this guy had came to him, and I'll have you comment on this because I think it's really cool. The guy came to him. He's losing his wife. He's trying everything, and Jocko said that, this guy had like business. Everything seemed to be going good. And then all the stuff just hit him all at once. Like, he's like, it's like the Challenger explosion on the space, like everything's perfect. It's like, yay, we're a space shuttle. And a lot of people may not, if they're younger, they don't know about that situation. Yeah. You should look it up. A lot of, people tragically lost their life and the space shuttle blew up. It was absolutely horrific. Astronauts and stuff like that. But the part of this that got me was Jocko's advice. And he goes, I'm a Navy SEAL, whatever. I teach leadership. But he goes, you need to start walking. And he didn't mean that. He meant it in like a figurative way. Like, he goes, if you're lost in the woods, let's say you wake up, you were unconscious, you got hit in the head or something, and you wake up. And you're in the woods and you have no idea where you go. He's like, the best thing you can do is start walking. Oh, there's a river. I stumbled on a river. Let me follow the river. Oh, I'm following the river, and then all of a sudden, I see a road over there, or a bridge. Well, let me get on the road and let me go, and then the road leads me to a town or leads me to get help or whatever. He goes, it's walking.
Yes.
But he goes, just standing in the forest and contemplating and thinking and worrying and being fearful and sitting on a rock, it's not going to help you. And I think a lot of addicts get into that foggy, narcissistic loop in their head, sitting on the couch in loneliness and isolation like Emma here, and they don't know how to walk.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah. No, that is a fantastic analogy. I'm stuck. I'm trapped in my addiction. I'll stay here. I'll stay on the couch. Life isn't even worth showing up for. What's the best thing you can do? Start walking. Start moving in a different direction. I am not my lips. What am I? I'm my feet. I could say something all day long. I'm going to show up to work. I'll be there. I'll be there. I'll be there. But if my feet don't take me to work, I don't have a job. So I am my feet. I'm not my lips. And with the appropriate action, the appropriate footwork, I can start to like the person I am. That's that integrity we've been talking about. That's that right action, principle-based action instead of self-based action. The couch is definitely self-based action. I'm so self-absorbed and stuck in my addiction, it has me trapped. And, you talked about going down into the depths and finding truth. And it's like the nice visual image of this pot of gold or this chamber and this tomb of gold, whatever the nice vision of gold is. Like, in order to get down there, usually there's a dragon guarding that gold.
There's a lot of obstacles.
And I have to confront the dragon of my addiction, this big, scary monster. And I have to slay that dragon in order to get the gold. And the way that we start to slay the dragon is walking.
Mm-hmm. That takes courage.
Get your ass up and walk. It takes a lot of courage.
Yes.
We say all it takes is everything you got. It's going to take everything you got because it's taken everything you got to get this far down the rabbit hole.
And I think one of the things that I want to make sure people, and the literature says this, let me read this and we'll talk about it. As we learn to accept our struggles and embrace our vulnerabilities, we cultivate a sense of compassion towards ourselves and others. This unconditional love and self-compassion becomes vital tools in our journey towards recovery. So as we begin, we've done a whole episode on acceptance, but as we begin to accept our struggles, as we begin to embrace our vulnerabilities, it's almost not, I've seen people pretend like something's not happening.
Yes.
There's a dragon in front of you.
Yes.
That needle is a dragon.
Yeah.
Those donuts are a dragon.
Yeah.
And you're going to have to, you can't, not enter into the cave. That's what life is about.
Right.
Like life in and of itself is just over and over and over again slaying dragons.
Yep.
And you get more confidence the more dragons you slay. When we talk about unconditional love, so many people have that word so wrong. Like they think unconditional love is just being, they'll use Jesus' example. It's not the act of him being a martyr that is the important part. Mm-mm. It's not the act of him dying. It's not the important part. It's the process and the way that he embraced all of the suffering. From being a child and being rejected in the temple, even having some special knowledge and everybody was amazing, but then, people started like, well, he's not even of the right pedigree. He was born in a border town, this cheesy border town with these super poor parents. So who does he have a right to even talk like this? Even though he was like some spiritual being that had tons of knowledge. And then all throughout Jesus' life, is genius. It's an amazing spiritual person. It's just full of constant rejection.
Yeah.
His own disciples rejected him at the time that he needed his buddies and his friends the most.
Yep.
They were like, ooh, I don't know who that guy is. Imagine that. Like, it's time that you're going to die, and your buddies just take off on you. All 12 of them. And then one's betraying you and stealing from you the whole time. So, it's the way that he embraced. And Jesus was so higher conscious. He looked at it not as suffering.
No. That's one of the most powerful lessons for us with Jesus on the cross. You cannot persecute me. You cannot touch the God consciousness inside of me. One of the beautiful words you talked about there in the literature is this compassion. Can I have compassion for myself and for others? Because in my active addiction, I'm really beating the shit out of myself.
Right.
I've been very cruel to myself. I don't know how to have unconditional love for anyone else, but also myself. And so the taking action, the walking in a different direction, that is opening the door to now I'm loving myself. To now, what does it mean to have unconditional love? It means that no condition, regardless of the condition, there's still love there. You can, no matter how far down the rabbit hole I went in my addiction, I can still contact God. I can still contact Spirit. And this idea of you cannot persecute me. Go for it. Do what you need to do. I had a woman yell at me the other day about a trash can. I shared with you at the gym. And it was one of the first times in my life where I didn't have an emotional response.
That's so good.
I didn't have an emotional response. She asked me to move her trash can a couple feet to the right. I was like, I can move it, no problem. And then she continued to yell, this irate woman, about the city and their rules and all this stuff. And my response was, I hope you have a nice day.
I love that.
And she was yelling, and it was one of the first times in my life, I think it happened maybe once or twice also before, where I just felt nothing. I didn't feel energetically charged. I didn't feel like I needed to defend myself in my actions. I didn't feel like I need to put this woman in her place for yelling at me. I just knew she could not persecute me. You cannot, go ahead and do what you need to do. You cannot hurt me.
Don't you think, not just with people, we always think of people when it comes to suffering and persecution.
Yes.
And what Jesus said, thought forms are just as important. And the bottle. Could you not look at the bottle, hold it up and say, you cannot persecute me?
What a powerful practice, bro. And catching the thought. You just said the thoughts.
Right.
Can I be as conscious and as present with my crazy, irate thoughts? I have crazy thoughts all day long. My brain is trying to kill me and others. My brain goes to the kneecap.
Yeah.
When someone misbehaves and I'm in my controlling, selfish mind, my brain says, go for the kneecap.
Yeah, monkey mind.
Take them back. Take that kneecap backwards. And they'll be on the ground, and then they'll know they should have behaved the way you wanted them to behave. That's how insane my brain can get, like that. So am I as present with my thoughts? Can I say, that's a crazy thought? I don't get very far when I resist the thoughts. The brain's job is to think. It's going to think. But can I spot the thought? Can I see it for what it is? It's just a crazy thought. There's a crazy thought. I don't have to become the emotion of kicking someone's kneecap. All I need to say is, that's comical. What a crazy thought that is. I'm not interested in causing harm today. I'm interested in being of service today. So there's a crazy thought, and then that's it. It's just a thought. It's just that is what it is.
Yeah, it's like matching hurt with hurt. Like a person's not going to lash out at you unless they're hurting.
Correct.
Like that lady is hurting.
Spiritually, big time.
And so unconditional love is looking at the only way that I'm going to heal the hurt in others is for me to have total acceptance.
Yeah. This vibration of acceptance, this vibration of healing. How good does it feel when I'm in someone's presence? Not their judgment, not their fear, not their hurt, not their control, just their presence, their God consciousness. It feels so good. I can just be who I am. So why am I not presenting my presence to others? Especially the ones closest to me, my loved ones, my family, my kids, my wife, the people I interact with every day, especially at work. I see these people every day. Do I really need to offer them my control and my fear? Why? That's a great, great spiritual practice. God, help me offer my presence. God, help me offer my presence. I want others to feel that good, but it puts me in the vibration of radical acceptance. I can just accept them for the way they are. They don't need to be the way I think they should be in order for everything to be okay. Presence is not control. True love, unconditional love, does not control.
No, and the literature says this. It's also about humility and the ability to put aside our egos. It's about learning, keyword, learning to relinquish control and trust in the wisdom of our higher power.
So powerful.
Trusting in the wisdom of our higher power. So when that lady, when you can, the lady's yelling at you, it's got to keep 3 feet from the trash can. I can't believe you better leave my trash can alone. You're just trusting in the wisdom of your higher power.
Yes.
It's like,
yes.
And a good practice, I do this all the time, is I love you. I'll just do it in my head.
Yeah, yeah.
If I'm getting annoyed by somebody, I just go into, I love you. I love you. I did that on the way back from the gym just now to trees for some reason.
Cool.
I was just having this, I try to do sporadic moments of gratitude.
Yes.
Abraham Hicks calls them those, what is she like?
A rampage?
Yeah, rampage. Yeah. So I just do rampage of gratitude.
That's so good.
And I was just doing it, but I just saw these beautiful trees on the way here, and I was like, I love you. I love you. I love you. I was looking at the trees like, well, you're kind of ugly. I don't. You're kind of, no, I love you too. We start judge, even, and then we get into judgment. You're not acting the way or looking the way that I want you to.
That's an ugly tree.
Yeah, that's an ugly tree. We don't love you, but this one is so beautiful. It's so funny, but aligning with what's in our highest good. Mm-hmm. The bottle that's persecuting you is not aligning in your highest good.
It's definitely aligning with my selfishness.
Mm-hmm.
I know it's going to work like that. The bottle is so attractive. Whatever the substance is, the addiction is so attractive because I instantly feel something different. So how do I walk through the feelings? Spiritual tools, spiritual practice. Take action, contrary action to the way I used to behave. Spot the thought. Oh, that's a crazy thought.
I love that.
Oh,
yes.
There's a selfish, self-centered thought. Why am I feeling so uncomfortable right now with this woman yelling at me? Can I handle my uncomfortable feelings, or do I need a substance to get through it? Walking through the uncomfortable feelings is confronting the dragon of the addiction. That's what's making me drink.
Yes.
I don't know how to experience these feelings. I'd rather not feel.
Yeah, and I want to share another story, and then we can close. I think we're coming up on time here pretty soon, but I want you to talk about this. So, a friend of mine, Eric, that's his name. He's a lawyer. He's pretty successful. I mean, he makes good money, fights for his kids and everything, but he had gambling addiction. Mm-hmm. So, especially when it came to sports.
Oh yes.
Yeah, this was before you could do it online, which makes it everything online is easier now. So he had to actually have bookies. And then some he owed him money, some he didn't. So he's like paying one. And so his work would suffer because he would always be juggling money. Mm-hmm. And it looked like he was doing well. His wife had a nice car. He had a nice car. They had a nice house. But it was a struggle to fight this addiction. And he put gambling over his family. He put gambling over his career. And he was literally, when I was talking with him about this, he said, I was literally driven by fear and control.
Wow.
It's just like constantly, how do I control the money? And then the fear that there's not going to be enough. Somebody's going to catch me. My wife's going to kind of know. She knows I'm like addicted to sports. And I'm watching SportsCenter all the time and ESPN, and I got the NFL, and I've got like multiple things going on, and I'm having to watch everything. He was talking about, he was even in like this thing they had to pay where it would talk about like this player partied all night. They had these insights, or this player's going through this thing with his girlfriend or baby mama or whatever,
Wow.
There was this thing, and so he got caught up in that. And of course, as it always did, it spiraled down, to divorce and all that stuff. And then that spiraling down, as it is with most addicts, forced him to confront his dragon or his addiction.
Yes.
And he began attending a local recovery group, a gambling addicts group. And he was introduced then to this concept that we're talking about of surrendering to a higher power.
Yeah.
And he engaged in these daily spiritual practices. He didn't even believe in them.
Yes.
He didn't even believe in the spiritual practices, but he's like, these people recovered, so I may not have enough belief in it yet. And what did you say? What did you say Abraham Hicks's view of a belief is?
A belief is just a thought that you keep thinking.
Isn't that good?
That's all a belief is, a thought that you keep thinking. So the answer is think the new thought more.
Yes.
If my new thought is I'm connected to abundance, instead of, worry about money, my belief, just think the new thought more. The belief is just a thought that you keep thinking. But go ahead, continue with the story.
And he, so he engaged in these daily spiritual practices, even though he said they were, he was almost embarrassed.
I don't even think it'll work.
Yeah, he was almost embarrassed, but he began to do it. And then automatically, this is how God works. He said he felt a sense of purpose. And then humility came right after that. And how did he get purpose? By helping others in the group.
Wow.
An addicts group. And so now, and this is so key, he said, it's so weird and it's a paradox, but I found strength in my vulnerability.
Absolutely. And
he said, I use that vulnerability to inspire others, and now in my local community, I'm, basically in charge of, kind of the leader in the gambling addicts, and so he goes multiple times a week, and he helps tons of people out. But I thought this was really interesting. Strength in his vulnerability.
Yeah, so powerful, so powerful. I want to be able to handle it. I want to be able to fix myself. I want to be able to lick the problem myself. Of course, I don't need any outside help. Why do I need help? Why would I need to go to a meeting? Why would I need to seek recovery? I can figure this out. If I still have some game, if my ego is still involved, that's usually my perspective. I'll figure this out. Excuse me. And then, the depths of our addiction, God willing, we receive a window of grace where, okay, I can't figure this out. I tried, no matter what, I return to the addiction. And then that window of grace gives me an opportunity to try something different. What's the something different? Be vulnerable and ask for help. I have to admit I'm not enough. Very difficult to do, especially for
humility.
A type A personality. It's the epitome of humility. Being right-sized means I can't handle this alone.
Yeah, I was watching a sales trainer on Instagram, and he was talking about that they would do role-playing. And you would walk up in front of somebody else, and you'd do the sales practice, and then you would role-play, and you would be humiliated, basically, on everybody, because now you're having to act to each other, and it just is awkward. And he goes, do you know how many people walk out? They don't want to walk. They'd just rather walk out than have to deal with the pressure that comes with being vulnerable and having humility.
Wow.
And it's the same thing, and that's why we encourage everyone to attend some type of group, whatever it is, whether if it's a gambling group, a drug addict group, whatever, alcohols, whatever. A group is so important. Why? And let's close on this, Dwayne. Why is it so important for somebody to get connected into a group?
Ideally, if it's a healthy group, they're practicing these spiritual principles. We began the podcast with you asking, what does spirituality look like in recovery? If I'm on the beam and I'm surrounded by a support group, I'm surrounded by people, like-minded people that are recovering from the same thing I'm recovering from, all of it looks like spirituality. Every decision I make throughout the day has an opportunity to have a spiritual undercurrent if I'm coming from the shoes of inner being. And then being connected with others in that process is really starting to touch that magic of recovery that's difficult to articulate, that's difficult to say over a microphone. But when you're experiencing the healing, when you're experiencing a lifestyle change, you'll know you're in the magic.
So it takes courage to go online and look a group up. It takes courage to walk inner being and start walking into the direction of that local group that you're going to walk into that's nervous, and there's people that are accepting all around you, but you don't know that yet. What's a good affirmation? And this will be the last thing we say. What's a good affirmation to get the courage, or what's a good prayer to have for somebody to just say it over and over and over again to get to the point to where they can get to the meeting?
God, I need your fucking help. That's a good go-to.
I love that. That's a good one.